When you're talking, Tommy, you very often use the term unbelievable, you couldn't imagine it, you couldn't think it up. And he said to me, you know, it was so unbelievable that we couldn't believe it. I was struck some time ago by Tommy Reichenthal, you know, the very well-known Belsen survivor who lives in Ireland, and he's actually part of our advisory committee. But one of the things, and I said it to him, I said, you know, when you're talking, Tommy, you very often use the term unbelievable, you couldn't imagine it, you couldn't think it up. And he said to me, you know, it was so unbelievable that we couldn't believe it while it was happening to us. We still couldn't believe it. It gives you a real sense of, and I think that is a very correct way of describing his particular relationship with the Holocaust. I believe he didn't speak about it until he was 60. He's 90 now. He was 9 when he arrived in Belsen. That he still can't kind of believe what happened to him.
Yeah. So when you were looking for objects, items, when trying to build it up, do you think that it, like, were you given the impression that it was easier, given that we live in this era of technology, or didn't it make any difference?
I think I had a lot of luck. My luck manifested itself in various ways. For example, I had enough photographs to build this exhibition. It's a small exhibition, takes half an hour to get round. So that's the first piece of luck. The objects were a bonus, and allowed also for a really a kind of deep, meaningful title as well, which I think grabs people's attention. I had unbelievable luck that I work as an art dealer. I've been putting on exhibitions for 30 years. So for me, that visual language is second nature. That part of it I could put together. And the other amazing piece of luck is my wife, who not only do I have this incredible emotional support, she also is very skilled at presentation. So, and as a creative producer. So we were really able to pool our experience and mold the material we had in such a way to make a compelling exhibition.
Right. Let's move now to Poland itself. Like I lived in Poland for a year. I actually wrote, if you don't mind, I'm just going to do some advertising here. I wrote a poetry book. That's in Portuguese. It was just translated to Polish. So if people want to purchase, they can Google it. A couple of poems about the Holocaust. And I lived in Poland for a year, in Katowice and Krakow, and I had the chance to visit Auschwitz. I didn't go there once. As far as I remember, I was there 3 or 4 times because some people were coming over, family, friends, and why not joining and trying to see it again. Have you visited any death camp, and what did you experience?
So I visited Auschwitz in 1990 with my mother, and it was her first visit back to Poland since the war. So I was 22. Deeply, deeply moving. At that point, we thought that my mother had been on a train destined for Auschwitz. My mother was thrown off a moving train by her mother in 1944. And again, through my research, we discovered that it wasn't heading to Auschwitz. It was heading west towards Germany, and probably destined for Sachsenhausen or Buchenwald or any amount of slave labor camps. None of these were good for a 5-year-old. She wouldn't have survived very long at all. However, we didn't know this in 1990, and we thought that we thought that Auschwitz was the destination. It was a very, very large camp, the largest. So, without doing specific research, it was a kind of reasonable guess. So we had that on our shoulders as we walked in. And you can imagine the power of walking in and out again. Not just my mother as an infant, but my mother as with her youngest son, and my mother at that stage with her first grandchild. So very, very, very symbolic. So Auschwitz in 1990. I was also looking through different eyes. I was looking through the eyes of a 22-year-old who had done none of the work in every sense to arrive at this point. However, I still found it oddly too sanitized, and this was inevitable because it needs maintenance like anything else. So, for instance, I learned that already by 1990, the wire in the fence had been replaced 3 times because without electricity running through it, it rusts. These things we don't think about. And I suppose already there were quite a lot of tourists. It felt, it's a strange thing to say about the heart of darkness that is Auschwitz, but I have had perhaps more powerful experiences elsewhere, kind of Holocaust-related sites.
Would you like to name one or two?
Yeah, I mean, for example, I visited the Anne Frank house, which I felt was just so deeply moving. I mean, you're in the room or the rooms in the attic, and it's just a house in a row of houses. Again, that idea of a distillation of the injustice meted out on a family, kids, just because they happen to be Jewish, in the middle of a city, affected me really, really forcefully. Just at the end of May, actually, I visited with my wife. We were in Łódź, and we took a trip to Chełmno, which is one of, there are 6 death camps. There were only 6 death camps in Poland. And this was about an hour out of Łódź. And it has meaning because my grandfather's aunt was murdered there, gassed at Chełmno. And one of the really sort of striking things about Chełmno, these were gas vans that were parked in a line. About 250,000 people were murdered there. Is the scale. It was so small until you go 4 kilometers down the road where the ash is interred in kind of a huge, it's now a memorial park. You need more space to bury that amount of murdered victims than murder them. So that was, again, hugely meaningful walking around the old ghetto in Łódź. I was in Prague in February, and I went to the Jewish quarter, which I found, again, deeply moving. The fact that you have this, I mean, it's almost, there's a reason why it's so well preserved, is because Hitler actually wanted to preserve a quarter of a city representing a dead culture.